I think the most important challenges, well, first of all, is cooperatives have this tendency to rather be inward-looking. The movement came to existence, in the times of crisis, in terms of the first industrial revolution, and they actually built themselves up despite government, actually, or despite a very negative and hostile environment. So they were very much inward-looking, very much defensive. I think the challenge will be now to become more progressive and to actually go to the outside world, explain much more what this cooperative business model is, because people don't understand it. They have either a notion it's something from the 19th century, or it's something which is it's not about business. I think the key challenge is cooperatives is a business. A cooperative as an enterprise. I think that basic message is not even coming through. And so it gets to the question, what is the purpose of business into the future? And when you start discussing that, you can actually propagate much better the role of the cooperative business model, which is a much more holistic business model, which does not focus only on financial criteria. It takes the human dimension into it, the people-centered business approach. I think that will be the challenge. How can we bring the cooperative business model into the center of society and use it not to take the capitalist or investor-led model out of the game, but put it there where it's best placed and put us there where we should be, in the middle. Because I think that's really what the model is about. And I think that is the main challenge, which then obviously will have implications on policy making, on legal issues, on how to make it easier to create a cooperative, but also on how to attract the young generation, to think about, when they think about creating an enterprise, create a cooperative enterprise. Yeah. So it is funny that we're in the 21st century, where everybody talks about open source, where talks about cooperation, co-decision, co-production, co-design. And yet these young generations don't think about the cooperative business model. So I think it's time to bring these two worlds together, and that will help us, to shape the future and be really in the middle of society where we want to be, and I think where we should be. I think for the next period, but clearly at the center, of course, is the promotion of the cooperative business model as a more sustainable business model, because it takes the different dimensions, economic, social, human, cultural dimensions into the business model. Where we will work on the other issues will center around the whole issue of sustainability, energy, environment, and what can cooperatives contribute to that as producers, but far much more even as consumers, as users of energy. International cooperative development will be, of course, important, so we can actually help propagate the model around the world and in other parts of Europe. Then it's all the issue about, everybody talks about corporate social responsibility, social enterprise, social economy, to position ourselves clearly in there. What is the cooperative's role in there? Who do we are, and where do we want to be seen in there? I think it's very important. Then there are other issues all around the notion of human development, health and education. But then the International Cooperative Year obviously is a vehicle for us to really promote the model. And then there are other issues which are very much EU policy driven, or international accounting norms, state aid and issues like that. And our work will center on having a clear position on the meso level, on the association level. What is the position of Cooperatives Europe? What's our strategy? And how do we then influence the policy making on the macro level? And how do we support intercooperation between our cooperative members on the micro enterprise level? There's clearly a much more interest in the cooperative business model due to the financial and economic crisis of the last few years, as the cooperative business model has shown to be far more resilient. I mean, one example which is brought up, all the losses which banks have accumulated during that, only 4% came from cooperative banks. There were no failures there, and I mean, their market share is far higher than the losses they made in there. They actually gained market share. So the cooperative business model has proven to be a very resilient model in crisis, which makes it easier, obviously, to approach the different institutions and talk about it, or they actually come to us now as well. The challenge is still, it's nice to talk about it, but you don't, if you don't see any action coming out from it, then it's just been a nice talk, and it will fade away as the crisis obviously has faded away. So the challenge is still there, but it's much easier to talk about it and and actually bring in the notion of alternative business models, of alternative financial markets, and so it's not so dogmatic anymore as we have seen it over the last 10, 20 years. In terms of communication strategy, we are just about to develop our key messages for next year, focusing on that we talk here about an enterprise, about a business model, that we're talking about sustainability, and that we talk about the diversity in approaches, sort of the approaches like cooperatives. There's a diversity of sectors, of approaches in different countries, but there's a unity. Unity and diversity is sort of a kind of a slogan which we like to develop. That is in terms of messages. In terms of calendar, obviously it will be launched in November at the UN General Assembly together with the ICA. In Europe, we will have one central event next year, a cooperative week in Brussels, focusing on the European institutions, which we will do in collaboration with the EU sectoral organizations and hopefully also with many national associations. That we have a whole week targeting the EU Commission, the Parliament, the Council, and the Economic and Social Committee, and using their facilities to propagate really the cooperative business model. I think as we are both very young organizations, we are sort of the aim is now to go to the next phase of that cooperation and define clear areas where we can be mutually supportive. For us, obviously, policy analysis is an important area where we don't have capacity, and if we can throw on the expertise and capacity of Euricse, I see this clearly as an area on the cooperative business model, of course. Also, I think very much on this whole notion of social economy, social enterprise. So I see there is quite some work how Euricse can support our policy making influence thing. At the same time, I think we can be of help, obviously, for Euricse to become a truly European organization, as it is still very much of an Italian-based organization. So I think the agenda will be built little by little, but these are for me the two first key areas.